Welcome to your master course on your journey to become a healthy, happy teacher. My name is Molly, and I'm ready and excited to get going into this module of student behaviors. But before we go, I want you to know that you are amazing. You change lives. You matter so much more than you will ever know. Thank you for that. Thank you also for being here and making yourself a better teacher so that you can thrive, not just survive. This is the first lesson of our student behaviors. It's understanding and responding. Lesson 1. I have an interesting story. My very first year of teaching, felt like I was thrown to the wolves. I was teaching my very first job was way back in 2001. You couldn't find any teaching positions. It was really hard. So I was an elementary K through 8 licensed teacher, and my first job was in a big high school teaching 9 through 12. And it was it was called EBD class, and it was an emotional behavioral disorder class that I had to teach, and I was being a special education teacher and on a variance. I had 22 kids on my caseload. I taught one class for the highest and most severely emotionally disturbed children. And then I wrote IEPs, and I was in classes with other students throughout the day as well. It was a whole new experience for me, but the most challenging and unique experience was my class I had of 8. I had to teach them life skills and just kind of about emotional and behavioral disorders. And so in my class, I had 3 cutters. I had no idea what a cutter was. I had one student with an eating disorder. I had one drug addict, and actually he was the son of one of the Hells Angels biker gang, and he had grown up in that lifestyle. There was one domestic violence and sexual assault survivor. 4 of them were currently in foster care. All of them had been at some point in their lives in foster care, and they were all in severe poverty. Me, as like a 21-year-old kid coming in here and teaching some of these 18-year-olds who'd had some pretty intense, severe life experiences. Talk about the tears. I mean, I shed so many tears that year of frustration and sadness for those students. I had no idea what I was supposed to do with them. I was absolutely miserable, quite frankly, stressed out to the max. I had huge anxiety coming into work every day. And that really began my journey of learning about student behaviors. And in hindsight, it was like probably the best thing that ever could have happened to me, because then I really dug deep into the psychology of behaviors in students and trying to understand it. And so that's what brings me here, because I felt like I was thrown to the wolves. And I'm wondering, have you ever felt like you were thrown to the wolves? Because I think it's safe to say that we have been there. And moving forward, I don't want you to ever feel that way again. What we're going to do is we're going to cover in this video what is student behavior, why students act out, and how to respond effectively. So I want you to think about this. When was the last time a student's behavior left you frustrated? What was your immediate response? Did you want to cry? Or were you sarcastic? Did you want to give up? Throw shame to them? Yell or raise your voice? Or totally just freak out on them? I mean, I think we've all had those moments, but I want to assure you that it's not your fault. And you don't know what you don't know. And over my 23 years in the classroom, I've just started to realize that, oh my gosh, teachers need to know this stuff. So it's not your fault. You don't know as much about student behaviors as you should know. And so let's dive into it. What is student behavior? The definition of student behavior refers to the actions and responses of students or how they behave. Okay. And you may have heard some of these things, like bad behavior means bad students, or they're just seeking attention. They should know better by now. I can't stand that one. They are good at gaslighting, or students, that kid's just lazy. They don't care. Maybe you have been told punishments fix everything. Compliance is more important than connection, or isolation fixes misbehavior. Get that kid out of here. You must solve the problem right away in this moment. More rules mean better control. Don't smile until Christmas. That means like just be really, 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 really strict until Christmas time. And after that, then you can actually show them that you're human and smile and have fun with them. Because if you don't, they're not going to listen to you. Or maybe they don't have to like you, but they must respect you. The reality is oftentimes what we think and know about student behaviors is inaccurate, and how we react is counterproductive to the outcome we want. Talk about hair pulling, stressed out, barely surviving. It's because we don't know what we don't know. And what we do know is inaccurate. And how we react is actually counterproductive. Like yelling and shaming and reacting with emotion and not listening, not even caring to listen, it really is overwhelm for all. So the secret is, in order to thrive and be effective as a teacher, you must see student behavior differently. And you must be very intentional in your actions. Now, research shows time and time again that every behavior is a form of communication. We just need to learn how to listen. I'm going to repeat that again. Every behavior is a form of communication. We just need to learn how to listen. Now that we know that about behavior, that it is really a form of communication and we have to see it differently, why do students act out? You may have seen this before where you have like the iceberg analogy. Behaviors are at the tip of the iceberg where you can see everything above water, and underneath are the underlying causes. So you don't know, but those are the causes to the behaviors. And it looks just like a two-layer iceberg. It's actually deeper than that. And I have created this behavior tornado. We're going to start at the bottom. And the bottom, kind of like a tornado, that's at the lower levels. That's our life experiences and circumstances. Those are like the underlying forces that kind of rise up into us. So we experience the life experiences and circumstances. From there, we acquire these core issues. And this is the most powerful part of student behavior. This is the most powerful, also the most powerful part of a tornado. It's the eye of the storm. This is the hidden yet most impactful part. The deeper feelings and the deeper core issues that kids acquire from their life experiences and circumstances. And then at the top, you have the surface student behaviors. That's what we see. Like from afar, you can see that in a tornado. Well, that's what the surface behaviors are. So all of the life experiences, deeper feelings, and core issues lead to that expression of the surface student behaviors. I'll show you some examples. The life experiences and circumstances. So here you have a divorce or hunger or loss of a loved one, bullying. Okay, these are things that happen to students or happen to us. Then you go up into the middle part of the tornado. This is what they get. This is what develops as a consequence of these life experiences and circumstances. For instance, if there's bullying, they might develop anger or depression, or what develop. So these core issues are what develop after their life experiences and circumstances. And from there, those core issues are the root to what is manifested. And that is what is like shouting, hitting, talking out of turn, maybe zoning out, all of those things. So behavior is really, really deep. And this is why kids act out. They have life experiences and circumstances that we have no idea about that have caused severe core issues that manifest into behaviors. This is a quote to really remember, to help you remember this, is that surface behaviors indicate the deeper feelings and circumstances. And these impacts of understanding just understanding this bit of knowledge is really detrimental to the well-being of teachers and students, and quite frankly, everyone. So now that you know that, okay, what is student behavior? Why do they act out? Well, how do you respond? The number one thing to remember when you are responding to a behavior is this: you have to seek to understand before you react. This means actively listening to your students, to their perspectives, experiences before you respond. And once you do this, it is game changing. I have created a system, and this is how I approach my students. And I call it the 4-step approach to student behaviors. And it's rare. It's rare because it doesn't happen all that often. I've seen it over the 23 years that it's just not out there as much as it should be. And it could really help reduce so much problem and pain for our teachers and everybody. So the first step is to recognize, observe. Is this a now or later issue? What is happening? What emotions are displayed by the student? What are my own triggers? Like, are they doing something that really gets me worked up? You got to take a deep breath. So you're just sitting back and recognizing, okay, what's really happening here? From there, you're going to assess. So consider the context and ask yourself, okay, what might be influencing this behavior or this pattern? And you're trying to get to an understanding of the behavior. Are these kids sitting by each other and the one irritates the other one? Is that why you're assessing what in the world could be the cause of this behavior? So you got to ask yourself, what is influencing this behavior? From there, you can respond, and you really need to stay calm. Remember, counterproductive is like the yelling and shaming. So when you respond, you have to stay calm. You approach the students with empathy and compassion. Do you have to give a silent response? Maybe you have cues inside your classroom. Do you give no response at that moment? Be very mindful of people's personal space because that can also be a trigger for some kids. And you need to have a private conversation. Having and belittling a kid in front of the class is never effective or kind or responsible or mature. So take a deep breath and respond with empathy. The fourth and final step in this is the engagement piece of it. So you need to ask for their perspective, get them out into a different area or get down to their level, listen and acknowledge their feelings and their experience. And together you got to work to find a solution. And maybe you have a behavior system inside of your classroom. Make sure you're following through with that. Collaborate with others if necessary. And you really need to connect with the student regularly to foster that relationship. Being proactive in that and starting that cycle of caring and proactiveness really, really helps in preventing student behaviors. So here's the 4-step student approach. And what this does is it really reduces stress and anxiety. It improves student relationships. It reduces classroom disruptions. It increases your confidence. It empowers your students, positive classroom culture, more effective interventions can take place, and lasting positive changes happen. We're going to do a scenario. I want you to think through this process, this rare process of kids sleeping. And this one's happened to me multiple times. You see this kid sleeping in class and they've fallen asleep. And let's say this is the first time and they're sleeping. How are you going to respond? So first you're going to recognize, okay, I recognize that the kid is sleeping and you're going to assess the situation. All right, is this a pattern? Is this something that I need to go address right now? Or does this kid really just need that sleep? You got to assess the situation. Then you need to respond. How are you going to respond? You have a couple ways you can respond. You can respond by slamming your hand on the desk and waking the kid up and embarrassing them in front of the whole class. You could go nudge them on the shoulder, or you could do nothing. That is the respond part of it. And then the fourth piece is the engage part. How are you going to engage with this kid? So let's rewind. The best way to handle the situation in response is doing nothing. Once it's a pattern, it's a problem. But until then, if this kid, let him sleep. Let him sleep this one time. It's not a situation you're going to deal with at that moment. But guess what? You're going to engage, the fourth step, you're going to engage after class or before class or during lunch. You're going to pull that kid aside and have a conversation. And this happened to me when I taught sixth grade. This kid was sleeping and he was like snoring almost in class. And I was like, I'm going to let him sleep. He clearly needs it. And this happened a couple days. And after the third day of him falling asleep, I called him in. I said, "Hey, can we have lunch? Let's have lunch." So he came in for lunch. I said, "How are you doing? I'm worried about you. I see that you're sleeping, and it's been a few days in a row. So, can you tell me like what's going on, or how can I help you?" And here he had told me that his parents were going through an awful divorce. They were up screaming and fighting. The past two of the three nights, the cops had been called to their house at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And that is why he literally couldn't stay awake in class. Moving forward, now I can move forward from there. We came up with a plan. We actually had to take it a few steps further with a counselor and everything because of the domestic violence piece that was happening. But that changed my relationship with that kid moving forward. And that changed his life for the better. I was somebody who was there caring for him. I actually cared what was going on instead of just saying, "Wake up. Why are you sleeping?" I got to the root problem. His life experiences were causing the behavior, but the core issue was actually really physical and painful. Every single day, you have a choice on how you're going to react. The rare approach is so helpful in doing so you can decrease student apathy, increase relationships. So many good things happen when you approach with understanding and trying to understand. I do have some downloadable resources in regards to this because this is a lot. Your guide to understanding student behaviors is just decoding student behavior chart. So go check out the resources within this module. For instance, it says behavior. Okay, frequent daydreaming. What could a possible underlying issue be? Anxiety, boredom, overwhelmed by class content. How could you go and act? You could gently redirect focus, check in privately to ask about understanding or stress. So this is just a really first level start on how you can interact and approach these students when you're dealing with these behaviors. Let's do a really quick recap. Takeaway number 1, student behavior is deeper than what we see. And understanding this is imperative to our effectiveness and joy as a teacher. Takeaway number 2, students act out due to underlying issues created from life circumstances. Think of the behavior tornado that illustrates this. And then the third takeaway is really seeking to understand before reacting. It benefits everybody. The 4-step rare approach is simple and effective in reacting to student behaviors. So what are you going to do next? Your action steps. You're going to start just tomorrow when you walk into your classroom or today. Observe student behavior without judgment. If you're seeing things, now look at it differently. Make note, mental note, or mark it down. Ask yourself, okay, that kid is over there, is up walking around, fidgeting with whatever. What's going on? Okay, maybe they have ADHD and they need to be walking around. Okay, so maybe I should give them some expectations as to what I expect. Yeah, you can get up and walk around. Just let me know. Give me a hand signal and do your thing as long as you're not distracting anybody. I want you to just shift and think of student behaviors. What are they what are they communicating? What is going on in their little minds? The next action step is go print the decoding student behavior chart for a reference. That is also in the resources section of this module. Keep working hard. You have the power to make change. And I am so excited to see you in lesson 2 as we dive deep into student behaviors, into trauma. Keep rocking it. You've got this.